woman's skirt, long enough to cover the subject and short enough to create interest. I think our next speaker is very, very, very good at doing both, in my opinion, from the times that I've seen him, from the times that I had the pleasure and privilege of watching his speeches or listening to his speeches. In 2006, Joe Jonas did two important things. Number one, he joined Toastmasters. And number two, he started a nonprofit organization called Career Ministries, which provides job search support groups for churches. Joe and the participants in his programs learned that job search, like life, doesn't always turn out as expected. Ladies and gentlemen, telling a story from his career ministry entitled Not the Way You Planned, please welcome Joe Jonas.
Several of the speeches recently that I've heard over the last few weeks have had a theme in them, including, I think, one that Ivy did about sometimes life has surprises and life doesn't always turn out like we planned. This is my version. For example, I never dreamed when I joined Toastmasters 10 years ago that I would win over 20 speech contests. Never dreamed that out of 500 people in the division, they would, for some reason, select me as Toastmaster of the Year. I never dreamed that I would receive over 150 of these ribbons that we give out at the end of meetings. I would have never dreamed. I would have never dreamed that I, a man with no children, would lead annual speech and leadership programs for youth for the last 7 years in a row. And I never dreamed that Career Ministries would grow into 27 different church locations in Florida, ministries in 10 states, and in 5 foreign countries. Never dreamed. Didn't expect it. Some of the times when things don't turn out as planned in life, that particularly applies to job search. And that's why I tell the following story to some of our job search members when they start to lose faith. Once there were 3 trees on a hill in the woods. They were discussing their hopes and dreams when the first tree said, "Someday I hope to be a great treasure chest. I could be filled with gold and silver and precious gems. I could be decorated with an intricate carving so that everyone would see the beauty." The second tree said, "Someday I'll be a mighty ship. I'll take kings and queens across the waters to sail the corners of the world. People will feel safe in me because of the strength of my hope." Finally, the third tree said, "I want to grow to be the tallest and straightest tree in the forest. People will see me on top of the hill, look up to my branches, and think of the heavens and God and how close I am to reaching them. I'll be the greatest tree of all time, and people will always remember me." After a few years of praying that their dreams would come true, a group of woodsmen came upon the trees. When one came to the first tree and he said, "This looks like a strong tree. I think I should be able to sell the wood to a carpenter." And he began cutting it down. The tree was happy because he knew the carpenter would make him into a great treasure chest. At the second tree, the woodsman said, "This looks like a strong tree. I'll be able to sell it to the shipyard." The tree was happy because he knew the carpenter would make him into a mighty ship. When the woodsman came upon the third tree, the tree was frightened, because that tree knew that if they cut him down, his dreams wouldn't come true. One of the men said, "I don't need anything special from my tree. I'll just take this one." And they cut it down. When the first tree arrived at the carpenter's, he was made into a feed box for animals. He was then placed in a barn and filled with hay. This was not at all what he had prayed for. The second tree was cut and made into a small fishing boat. His dreams of being a mighty ship and carrying kings had come to an end. The third tree was cut into large pieces and left alone in the dark. Then one day, a man and a woman came to the barn. She gave birth, and they placed the baby in the hay in a feed box that was made from the first tree. The man wished that he could have made a crib for the baby, but this manger would have to do. The tree could feel the importance of this event and knew that it had held the greatest treasure of all time. Years later, a group of men got in a fishing boat made from the second tree. One of the men was tired and fell asleep. While they were out on the water, a great storm arose, and the tree didn't think it was strong enough to keep the men safe. The men woke the sleeping man, and he stood and said, "Peace." And the storm stopped. At this time, the tree knew that it had carried the King of Kings in his boat. Finally, someone came and got the third tree. It was carried through the streets as the people mocked the man who was carrying it. When they came to a stop, the man was nailed to the tree and raised in the air to die at the top of the hill. When Sunday came, the tree came to realize that it was strong enough to stand at the top of the hill and be as close to God as possible, because Jesus was just crucified. The moral of this story is that when things don't seem to be going your way, always know that God has a plan for you. Each of the trees got what they wanted, just not in the way they had imagined. We don't always know what God's plans are for us, but if we have faith and we use the skills that He's given us to serve others, He will take us places that we've never dreamed.